Good morning, my friends, on this wonderful Sunday morning. I'm Robbie from bestenglishfiction.com, which is a website dedicated to all foreign English speakers who aspire to become fluent in reading and enjoy English fiction. But I have a unique twist on the whole reading thing, namely, you have to read, but you have to develop your ability to speak as well. And that's when spoken English self-practice comes in handy, and that's what I do the whole time. When I read my books, I always discuss them with myself, and I learn a lot of vocabulary and phraseology out of the fiction I read, But anyway, today I wanted to show you some books that helped me to define myself as a person, and these are my all-time favorites. The author is David Gemmell. He's a British author, and he's passed away about 6 or 7 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but around 2006 or 2007, right? But the book that helped me most to find my own moral values, and the book that I fell in love with David Gemmell as an author and his characters and the way he depicts those characters and the way his characters reveal themselves and all their good and bad sides and everything around that, is fascinating, and I fell in love with that type of fiction, which is heroic fantasy. And I was basically into that type of fiction for a long time, till one fine day something happened and I just didn't want to read that fiction anymore. But I was into this type of fiction for about 4 or 5 years, and this is the first book, Legend, in the Druss, the Legend trilogy. This is the first book, Legend, but chronologically it's actually the last one. The first one is the first Chronicles of Druss the Legend, and the second one is Legend of Deathwalker. This is the central character in the book. In all these books, obviously, Druss. And he's a tough guy. There is no give in him, He has very defined values. He has his own look on life. And he won't budge no matter what happens to him, and no matter what the life throws at him. He's going to deal with it head on, and he doesn't compromise. He's the ultimate man, When you face him, right, there are no alternatives. Whether you fight him and die for your cause, because Druss is the strongest man alive, And, he's the good guy. He's the ultimate good guy. He follows his code. Of course, I wouldn't remember the code off by heart, but it was something along the lines of never harm a woman nor a child, never let the promises of riches or something like that to make you perpetrate bad deeds or something like that. Basically be good at all times. Always help the ones who suffer and those who are weaker than you. Basically never let the thought of gain make you start doing bad things in life. And never lie, cheat, or steal. Those things are for lesser men. And basically Truss upheld that code throughout his whole life, and he died on a battlefield. This type of fiction is all about battles, heroic fiction, heroic fantasy. Typically, it's all about, the whole setting is like in medieval times, when there's no technology. Technology is not developed. Everything happens like in medieval times. People are carrying swords and knives, and basically, it's all about fighting, armies clashing, bad guys, bad kings, and the villains of those stories are trying to evade the good countries, obviously. And it's all about warfare, by and large. There's so many battle scenes in these type of fictions, and it's the typical, to draw a full picture for you, imagine one of those Lord of Rings films, There's some monsters and witches and wizards, and the good guy has to go on a mission to save the world, so to speak, But the best thing I like about David Gemmell's books, and I've read all of his books, believe me guys, it's more than 30 books, and they're all packed on that bookshelf. They're all covered up with some greeting cards or whatnot, but basically I love David Gemmell's fiction because his fiction is unique. You won't find another author like David Gemmell. You can count on that, because I've been looking into countless other fantasy fiction, but I never quite liked anything like David Gemmell's fiction, because David Gemmell's characters, I can't really find the right words for it, they're so vivid, so distinct, and in all his fiction, all the different types of fiction he has, all the different series, the main characters, can you call them archetypes or something like that? Let me do a Google search. I'm pretty sure there is such a word as archetype or something like that. Archetype. Yeah, it refers to a generic version of a personality. Archetype. I suppose that's how it's pronounced. Archetype, no, archetype. Archetype, yeah. Basically, Druss the Legend is the ultimate good guy, and that character permeates his whole fiction, because in other series where all the settings are different, you would find characters similar to Druss the Legend, unyielding, headstrong, holding moral values and never letting go of them, never doubting themselves. Really, really strong guys. Those who will always help others, and those who will die for their beliefs. Those who won't waver in front of enmity, Those who will never give up, basically. And then there are other types of characters in his books. What was his name? Sieben, poet. He was Druss's friend. He was a wily guy. He was a thief initially, but then he changed throughout the years since he became Druss's friend. Druss kind of infected that guy. He wasn't a bad guy, Sieben, but he wouldn't be what you call it, he wouldn't have the same moral values, He would do a bad thing as far as murder or something really bad wouldn't be involved, He would, basically money obviously governs everything, but Druss wasn't after money. Druss's world, money wasn't everything, but for Sieben and any ordinary person, they would do pretty much everything for money. They would steal, they would cheat, they would lie, do all those things Druss would never do, But over time, Sieben changed because Druss infected, so to speak, him with his values, And they became good friends, and it's an irony, how a bad guy can change and become good. And many of Dave Gemmell's characters are good and bad at the same time. And it goes to show that we all carry the seed of evil, basically, within ourselves. And even Druss did, but he was so strong. He was possessed his axe, he was wielding an axe. Its name was Snaga, not that it mattered, but anyway, just let you know, right? And the axe belonged to his grandfather, who was a terrible killer. He was a madman. Basically, throughout these books, Druss finds out that the axe is possessed by a demon, and the demon took over his grandfather and made him into this evil butcher, evil slayer of children and rapist of women. He was everything bad you could imagine. That was his grandfather, basically, and Druss was dreading to become into the same person, so he was controlling himself he didn't allow the demon to take over. There were some incidents, but Dross emerged victorious because he was so strong of character that he overcame all those promises by the demon, the temptations and everything. It didn't matter to him. He had his love of life, who he was looking for 7 years. She was kidnapped, basically his wife. He got married at a young age, and then she was kidnapped by some slave traders, and she was taken away to another continent, and Dross followed her and found her after a 7-year-old quest. He never gave up, and that's him. And the whole image of Dross helped me personally to find my values, to understand what's the right thing to do, what's the bad thing to do in life, because previously I would be pretty much like Sieben, the character in the book, who could do basically anything. Well, not anything, but I was a person with no distinct values, I wouldn't consider stealing or cheating necessarily a very bad thing. I would consider it as part of life. Sure, anyone does it, But these books, to be honest with you guys, they're like Bible to me. Now, seriously, not to undervalue the importance of the Bible, but if you read these books, if you're anything like me, then you'll find that they will also define yourself as a person, or at least help you to understand what's good, what's bad, and they will all organize your moral values, so to speak. Basically, that's about it, my friends. This is the story I wanted to share with you today. David Gemmell is my favorite author of all times, and even though I've stopped reading fantasy fiction for simple reasons that I can't find any books equaling David Gemmell's, he's unique, and his legacy is around 30 books or so. Yeah, I'd say so. And I've read all his series many times over, and I love him. I love him, seriously, guys. And if you're looking for good fiction to read, if you're a foreigner just like me, and you think, well, I'm not really good at reading, and my vocabulary is weak or whatnot, then this fiction is ideal, for the simple reason that he uses plain language, simple language, and even though you might encounter some specific vocabulary, some horse-related terms, because it's all like medieval times. There's a lot of horse riding, battle terminology, but it's not that difficult. There's not a lot of modern language because there are no references to technology or anything like that. But one interesting thing about David Gemmell's fiction is that throughout all his fiction, he still intertwines some sci-fi element in it, because behind all the wizardry and the weird things and the magical things that happen in his fiction, there's always the scientific background, the mutations in terms of DNA and things like that, and traveling back into the past or into the future, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was basically, if you read his fiction, the main picture starts revealing itself. It's all about, it's all scientific. There is no magic, even though superficially it might seem to you that it's your typical fantasy fiction. After a while, you'll realize that it's much more pleasant than that, because it's all kind of scientific. It's in one of his books. When you read into it, you start understanding that it's all about cloning people. But in those terms, in how it was described in the book, they use terms like resurrection and things like that. But you come to understand that what actually is happening, it's cloning. And I only realized it after a while, after reading that book, and he has a series called John Shannon novels, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, John Shannon books, Wolf and Shadow, The Last Guardian, and Bloodstone. that the main character is in those books the main character is like the bad guy and the good guy at the same time. You know, he wouldn't kill necessarily. He wouldn't kill a good person, but he wouldn't give a damn about killing the bad guy. He would be having no moral qualms about that. You know, and he would tell you, "Listen, leave me alone. Just piss off." You know, I'm my own man. I know what I'm doing. I don't give a damn about your thoughts, whatever you think about me. You know, the rough kind of man. You know, that's John Shano, and other characters are similar in other of his series. You know, but it's not Dross. Even though Dross could be gruff at times and impolite, but he would still basically maintain his moral background and would never be intentionally rude. You know, whereas other characters are very interesting in the way that they would tell you to basically go and F yourself, but at the end of the day they would do the right thing, morally right thing. You know, there would be a constant clash of emotions within those characters. They would be constantly doubting themselves, and they would be still strong men, but they would, there would be the factor of doubt, whereas Dross wouldn't doubt ever. You know, he was knowing what he was doing at any given time, and basically either he succeeded or failed. Obviously he succeeded more often than failed, because had he failed he would be killed, you know, but he died at the age of 60. Anyway, I'm making this video too long now, guys. Thanks for watching, and basically, if you're interested in fantasy fiction or any fiction, if you're on a lookout for fiction that might be the best for you as a foreigner, definitely look into David Gemmell's books. These are the books that I like best. The Legend, First Chronicles of Dross Legend, and the Legend of Deathwalker. It's all about Dross Legend, but he has plenty more series, and they're the best fantasy fiction around. Okay, my friends, thanks for watching, and see you soon again. Bye-bye.